For 6 generations, we have seen Toyota provide us a rugged body-on-frame SUV for all applications and for all buyers. But for 2026, they may have gone a bit overboard because we have 12 different trim levels available. That is right. 12 models under the same nameplate. It starts off with the SR5 at around $45,000 and ends with the TRD Pro at just below 70 grand. Over the past 6 years, we have seen this particular segment grow substantially, and it's not just the body-on-frame offerings in the US. You now have a lot of manufacturers building unibody chassis crossovers with off-road tuned suspension, all-terrain tires, and rugged aesthetics. But thankfully, the Toyota 4Runner hasn't deviated from its identity to appease buyers who are looking for a softer vehicle and a more comfortable daily driver. Instead, they doubled down on it, and we have a number of trims that are rugged and off-road ready from the factory. I've had the opportunity to experience this particular 4Runner for the past week, and I gotta say, it is rather impressive, and I want to give you guys my thoughts on this 4Runner and why it just might be the most ultimate daily driver you can buy right now. So in this video, we're going to check out what this vehicle has to offer us. We're going to check out the exterior, the interior, and take it out for a test drive and see why this particular 4Runner we're taking a look at today just might be the best value in this market. So as always, let's begin with that pricing. For the 2026 Toyota 4Runner we're taking a look at today, this is the Trailhunter, coming in at just below $70,000. In some ways, you could look at this as being the top trim alongside the TRD Pro because pricing is identical. However, both trims go in two completely different directions. Now, with the Trailhunter, this is your overlanding model, as you can tell with the all-terrain tires, and then the aggressive fender flares, and the fact that from the factory, it is kitted out for off-road driving and taking on different types of terrain, whereas the TRD Pro is more specifically for faster off-road performance, such as Baja desert driving and more of a sportier experience, whereas this, you'll definitely be taking your time with the rocks, the mud, and the ruts. Our model is in this beautiful Everest green paint color, which matches the bronze accents found throughout. Up front, you are going to receive full LED headlights, and those daytime running lights are in an amber color, which again looks really good with the Everest green paint color. Now, if that lighting isn't enough for you, you have an LED light strip, light bar here, giving you better visibility at night or in adverse weather conditions, and we have rigid fog lights as well. So if you are taking on the trails and it's raining or snowing, there won't be any issues when it comes to that visibility. Also, you're going to notice the bronze accents for the Toyota badge with that grille, and the grille design, you have a honeycomb mesh grille look, which I think gives you more of an aggressive appearance. For the lower portion of the front bumper, here we have some satin accents, which should be able to deflect the road salt, the debris, the mud, anything you throw at it for the off-road. And then obviously beneath that, you're going to find all your skid plates, making sure that the undercarriage of this vehicle is safe and secure. As we make our way over to the side profile, here we have those 18-inch bronze alloy wheels wrapped in 33-inch Toyo all-terrain tires. This is the only trim with this particular setup, and it does look rather aggressive. We're going to talk about these 33-inch tires, though, because when it comes to on-pavement driving, that could be a detriment when it comes to interior insulation and road noise. But for those of you who are adventurous, these tires are going to get you through those deep conditions when you are in the snow, the mud, or on the trails. Also, we have the aggressive fender flares here, which do match your side mirror caps with turn signal indicators to go along with blind spot detection for added safety. We also have the iForce Max badge on the hood, letting us know we do have a hybrid system. We're going to talk about that later on. But the big talking point, though, is the high-mounted intake. Now, yes, it is a snorkel, but Toyota has been very keen on saying that it is an intake, and it does make a beautiful noise if you are an avid enthusiast when it comes to turbocharged engines. Above you. Above you are going to find your roof rack here. And this is all standard. This is all from Toyota. And this is from ARB. So if you are ready to go off-road immediately after picking up this model, This SUV is designed to do that almost immediately after signing those papers. Then as you make your way around to the back, here we are going to have those LED tail lights, but best of all, you have the rear window, which you can automatically lower and raise, give you better airflow, but also when you're sitting around a campfire, you can just leave the tailgate closed, you can have that open, whatever you want to do here. Then we have the cladding once again with the Toyota badge, and then for the lower portion of the rear bumper, here we have again the satin accents, which gives us some continuity here to the overall design of this 4Runner. Then we are going to have our trailer hitch, which we are going to have a towing capacity of right around 6,000 pounds. And as you can tell, we have a spare tire. So if you do encounter a flat on your road trips or travels, you can fix that and be back on the road. And then here we have our exhaust outlet. One last thing I want to point out here, aside from the fact we have the little Trailhunter badge and emblem here and the 4Runner badge, is that along the side profile, because I didn't bring this up, you are going to have a ground clearance of 10.2 inches. So a good amount of capability here, stock from the factory, if you are someone ready to go off-road. Powering the 2026 Toyota 4Runner Trailhunter is going to be a 2.4-liter turbocharged hybrid 4-cylinder engine producing 323 horsepower and 465 pound-feet of torque. It will be paired with an 8-speed automatic transmission, and as expected, with this being a rugged off-road worthy vehicle, you are going to have part-time 4-wheel drive and electronic locking rear differential, so that way you can take on those elements and the off-road. Probably the more important thing here with the Trailhunter is the fact that it does have this hybrid powertrain. And with the hybrid powertrain, when it comes to fuel economy, you're looking at right around 23 miles per gallon in the city and 24 miles per gallon on the highway, which I guess you could say is respectable in this class because a lot of vehicles are gas guzzlers. And while some people are going to sit back and say, I don't want a Turbo 4, I want the V6. Well, with this Turbo 4, it just might impress you, and we'll talk about that later on during the test drive. Hopping inside the Trailhunter, you're going to be greeted by power-adjustable, heated and ventilated Softex seats for both the driver and passenger, with the driver's side having 2-position memory for added convenience, and both front seats do offer lumbar support, which is going to be very important if you are overlanding with this trim. Now, as you can tell with the seats, we have color contrasting stitching, and that translates to the dashboard and door panels. And speaking of the dashboard, with this being a body-on-frame SUV, those aesthetics do carry over from the exterior to the interior, which I really do think sets a tone for this model in this particular market and class. Also, another thing too is that you have all this technology now out of the 6th generation 4Runner with a full digital gauge cluster and 14-inch touchscreen. However, there's still physical buttons and dials that we'll dive into later on in this video and this segment that gives you an analog and traditional layout, which I think a lot of you are going to like, and I think this is huge right now in the 2020s. In regards to the comfort for these seats, it's almost immediate that you feel the softness and plushness. The support is pretty good, the bolstering isn't going to be aggressive, and obviously with this being a Trailhunter and not a TRD, I'm not expecting that, nor am I demanding it. I know this vehicle is tuned for a specific purpose, overlanding and slower driving rather than the TRD, which is really supposed to be more of a sportier trim in the lineup. So I think during longer road trips, longer commutes, you're going to find comfort here out of this vehicle more importantly. In front of you is going to be a leather-wrapped steering wheel, which is very beefy, by the way, with aggressive 10-2 and firm 9-3 grips. However, you are going to find a power-adjustable steering column out of the Trailhunter. You're going to notice physical buttons on the steering wheel as well for your adaptive cruise control settings, but also more importantly, to help you customize this full digital gauge cluster. When I say customize, you can customize everything. The gauges and the center display inside those gauges, which gives you a lot of information to work with, such as your tire pressure monitoring system, your average fuel economy statistics. Also, of course, with this being a body-on-frame SUV, you can showcase the turbo gauge, the auxiliary gauges, the trailer brake. It is all right here, even traction monitor as well. So a lot to work with, and this is the type of things you want to see out of a vehicle that you will be taking on all different types of terrain. Now, making our way over to the infotainment system, we are going to have this massive 14-inch touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility. We also have the JBL audio system to amplify the audio of your favorite music. And of course, we do have onboard navigation, which you can subscribe to. And thankfully, for the first time ever, in all the reviews I've done with Toyota, we had the navigation system up. Not my favorite display, But of course, we have Waze and Google Maps if you want to go in that direction. On the left side of the screen will be quick access icons, of course, for your navigation system, your radio, your Bluetooth, then your vehicle settings as well, such as your trip information and vehicle alert. And then lastly is going to be for your vehicle settings or general settings for personal info, Bluetooth and devices, general notifications, Wi-Fi display, sound and media, navigation, etc. It's a very easy infotainment system to get used to. It's not complex. It's used in many Toyota products. And if you're someone who's not really acclimated with technology, you don't like having technology in your vehicle, I think this is the happy medium. This is the way to go, especially right now in the 2020s and for a vehicle coming in at around $70,000. Best of all, though, with this being a Trailhunter coming in at close to 70 grand, you're going to have a plethora of camera angles to work with. I mean, plethora. Not only are you going to have a 360-degree view, you have a top view, front-facing camera, rear backup camera with trajectory, and then if that wasn't enough, you have your off-road camera modes for your Waze sensing, but then you have your front-facing camera, your rear backup camera, side views for your wheels. So you are not going to be damaging this vehicle if you are going off-road. And these are things you want to see out of an SUV such as this. Now, as we continue on beneath the head unit, you are going to find a physical volume knob, but then physical buttons and dials for your dual zone climate control, your AC, front and rear defrosters, fan speed, fan direction, heated and ventilated front seats, and your heated steering wheel. Then on the driver's side, for the dashboard, you're going to notice more buttons here for your fuel door opener, auto high beam assist, your traction control on and off, your AC 120 volt outlet, then of course your power lift gate. We have 4 auxiliary buttons. What I like for the exterior is your light bar and fog light switches, which is going to give you a lot more visibility when you are on the trails. For the center console itself, here we have our wireless phone charging pad, but next to that, another area for an additional smartphone. We have 2 USB-C outlets, a 12-volt outlet, a USB outlet on the side of the infotainment system, so a good amount of places to charge up your smartphones. You have a traditional gear lever here, electronic parking brake, auto vehicle hold, 2 high, 4 low. We have a drive mode selector for normal, sport, and eco. We have a crawl mode, we have tow and haul, and then lastly, you're going to notice another row of buttons when you are towing. You have your camera angles, your rear locking differential. So a lot to work with here out of this SUV. You're going to notice 2 cup holders. Then if there's a storage compartment, enough room for some smaller items, maybe a wallet, smartphones, other tech gadgets. Then to round out the front seating area, you are going to have a digital rear view mirror, which I think is huge because most likely you are going to have kids or adults in the second row, and that will impede on your overall visibility. And also, if you're loading this vehicle up with gear and camping equipment, that will also play a role with how much visibility you see out of that rear window. So I do like seeing that. Then one more thing I want to point out, we have no power moonroof or panoramic sunroof here with the Trailhunter. I know some people have complained about that. I gotta be honest, it has been hot this week, so it's been great not hopping into this greenhouse effect where it's too humid and too hot. So I actually don't mind not having that power moonroof. Then for passengers in the second row, we had highlighted this last year when we checked out the 4Runner for the first time, is that you're not going to have a lot of legroom necessarily. You're looking at just below 35 inches, which isn't going to be class leading. There is better options out there when it comes to the overall practicality. And this seat has been adjusted most of the way back, and I gotta say, I'm feeling a bit cramped. So that means taller passengers will be feeling a bit more claustrophobic. When it comes to headroom, we have a lower roofline, surprisingly, with this being a body-on-frame SUV. Then obviously comparing this to a Ford Bronco and Jeep Wrangler, you can't remove the roof. So taller passengers might be hitting their head on the headliner. However, there is a silver lining here because this vehicle is wide enough and has enough shoulder room and legroom where you can accommodate a third person in the center. Now, other vehicles in this class, like that Bronco, like that Wrangler, they're only 2 rows. They only offer 2 rows. But there are some unibody chassis SUVs that do give you a third row option. And that might be where the 4Runner falls just a bit short depending on what you're looking for. But if you are comparing this pound for pound with other body-on-frame and rugged SUVs in this class, it's not like it's missing out on features or amenities in that regard. We are going to have 2 center-mounted air vents to go along with 2 USB-C outlets and a 3-pronged outlet. But interestingly enough, with this being a $70,000 SUV, we don't have heated outboard seats. We don't have climate control either. I'm really surprised by that. I'd like to see that added into this model in the future, considering that it is near the top out of the 12 trims for the 2026 4Runner. Maybe some of you are like, we don't need that. We don't need to add any more expenses because I'm looking for the off-road capability and the money is being tied up in that. So I don't want to have any more creature comforts and amenities. But with this being a family-friendly SUV, I'm going to talk about this during the test drive, the fact that it is somewhat sensible and practical, it'd be nice to have that here in future model years. Then to round out the second row seating area, you are going to receive a center armrest with 2 cup holders. Returning to the rear fascia to take a look at the cargo area for the 2026 Toyota 4Runner. As expected for a vehicle at this price point, you are going to receive a power liftgate. And inside behind the second row seats, you're looking at right on 42.5 cubic feet of room, which would fall right in line with many body-on-frame SUVs in this class. Now, I had to bring this up to be fair, that some vehicles in this market that do offer a rugged trim that are unibody might have a bit more interior space, will offer a third row, especially at this price point. But the 4Runner is in the same category as the Bronco and the Wrangler. Those are 2 vehicles that can go deeper into the forest, that can go deeper into the wilderness, and the 4Runner is similar in that regard. The only difference, though, is that you can't take off the doors or the roof. So that's one thing you're going to have to consider here with this model. And that's one of the reasons why I think when it comes to the practicality and sensibility of the 4Runner, it does outshine other body-on-frame vehicles. It might be a bit more similar to an Ineos Grenadier in that regard. However, how many vehicles at $70,000 are going to have an onboard air compressor? Right? Not a lot of SUVs are going to give you that, especially unibody chassis crossovers too. You're going to notice on both sides of the cargo area that this vehicle should offer a third row because there is some storage compartments and you also have cup holders too. You're also going to notice you have a 3-pronged outlet on the right side. But a really intuitive aspect of the 4Runner is this storage compartment for smaller items such as your first aid kit, your compressor kit, your netting if you want to tie things down here behind the second row seats. And there's some room for other items as well, which is really nice. When you lower the second row seats, you're looking at around 82.5 cubic feet of room, which would be pretty good for a vehicle in this market. I do know there are SUVs that are unibody chassis that will be closer to 80 to 90, but the 4Runner gives you just enough in terms of practicality where it makes it a great year-round vehicle, an all-purpose vehicle. And that's why for me the 4Runner is one of very few vehicles that can pretty much do it all, especially with the Trailhunter trim. The 6th generation Toyota 4Runner has been around long enough where the shock of no V6 powertrain option may have worn off. And in its place is a sense of admiration, a sense of respect. That might be due to the fact that gas prices are pretty high right now and buyers are looking for fuel efficiency out of body-on-frame SUVs. And that might explain why the 4Runner sales figures are up significantly right now in 2026 alongside the Tacoma. Now, throughout this week, not once have I sat back and thought to myself, you know what? We need a V6. We need more power. This 2.4-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, which is a hybrid, provides just enough where, all right, it's not a sports SUV. You know, you're not going to be breaking speed records. You're not going to be leaving people in the dust. But it's not lethargic. It's not slow. And with the 8-speed automatic, it's smooth. Objectively speaking, for those of you who love the 4Runner, that have owned numerous generations, the 8-speed automatic might be the best addition for this vehicle. Because in the past you had a 5-speed automatic and people are looking for a bit more engagement out of their vehicles, whether it is for off-road purposes or on pavement. And this 8-speed automatic shifts very smoothly and it gives you a sense of spryness out of a vehicle that is not the lightest in its class, that has 33-inch all-terrain tires, that isn't the nimblest vehicle out there. And yet, this SUV, as a commuter, is rather fun. And some of that can be due to the fact we have the high-mounted intake. Sometimes I feel like I'm driving my Volkswagen GTI with my open box cold air intake, and to me, it just gives me a sense of character out of this model. And I know that some people don't like the Trailhunter because of that, and they're going in the TRD Pro direction. which might be smarter depending on what you're looking for. If you want more of a higher speed experience, the TRD Pro is going to be the better choice out of the two. But for those of you who fit the mold of all the drivers I saw on the road coming back from New York that were towing RVs, that were towing jet skis and boats, and had SUVs with this particular setup, with all-terrain tires that was rugged, this is going to be speaking to you in many ways. Right? You have a towing capacity of close to 6,000 pounds. You have a payload capacity close to 900. You also have a vehicle that can get you through a lot of different types of terrain. And with the TRD Pro, it might not have the same capabilities in that regard. With 10.2 inches of ground clearance, you're not going to be worrying about anything. You'll have enough ground clearance to take on some rocky terrain. You'll have enough ground clearance to take on deep snow and mud. And that's where the 4Runner has its flexibility for the on-road driving experience. But I also like to say that with the flexibility, it's not just its capability and its on-road performance. It's the fact that it's also family-friendly. It's a vehicle that you can grow with your family. And that's one of the key differences compared to a Ford Bronco, a Jeep Wrangler. Those two vehicles are set up for off-road driving almost immediately, and they're not the most daily drivable. They're really not. You have to be a certain type of buyer to really enjoy a vehicle like that Monday through Sunday. With the Old Man Emu shocks, you can handle bumps and imperfections quite well on pavement, especially up here in New England, where you're not getting thrown around, you're not getting hassled. And in some ways, it doesn't have the demeanor of a pickup truck. It doesn't feel like a body-on-frame SUV at times. And the fact that it can blend that really well is what's made this week somewhat enjoyable for me. The fact that this is a vehicle that can be comfortable, that can be relatively quiet when you're cruising around the city and suburbs, and also have the on-road comfort where I'm not sitting here thinking, you know, I wish Toyota gave me an SR5 or gave me a TRD Sport. With the Trailhunter, this is a vehicle that can blend both worlds quite well. So you can have that long drive, that 300, 400 mile drive to your destination, and it can be comfortable and it can be relaxing. And at the same time, when you get to that destination and you're ready to take on the trails, this vehicle can then perform in that element too. What I also like too out of this vehicle is the steering input. I was expecting a very vague, numb, sedated feel. And instead, whether it's eco, normal, or sport, there's actually some weight to it. There's actually a sense of engagement. There's at least a feel here that some body-on-frame SUVs, some rugged vehicles just do not offer. And it's given me a sense of connectivity that I was not expecting walking into this vehicle. Considering the fact that it is the Trailhunter, 33-inch tires, off-road tuned suspension, I'm expecting something a bit more disconnected, something that's a bit more purpose-built and purpose-driven for a different type of terrain and a different type of driving experience. And yet, for weekday purposes, it's suitable. Now, unfortunately, it can't all be good here with the Trailhunter. There's a few things I don't like about this model, and they're very minor, and they're things that maybe some of you will not care about, might not find relevant. One is the fact that there's a lot of blind spots here out of the 4Runner, at least in this application. Because when you're taking a sharp right corner, that A-pillar is very aggressive, and even on the driver's side, it's aggressive. So you're going to have some blind spots when you are approaching intersections or red lights. And for me, when I'm taking that right turn, sometimes I can't see what's there. So I have to look around the A-pillar, and that's something I really don't like. Also, with the brakes are numb. There's just not a lot there. There's no grab. And when you are in stop-and-go traffic or on the highway, there's a lot of travel with these brakes. And I'd like to see that grab. I'd like to see that strong aspect to these brakes to slow this vehicle down. And then one last minor gripe here out of the 4Runner. This isn't really pertaining to the driving experience necessarily, but is something worth mentioning from my experience with this vehicle, is that with the seats, yes, they're plush, yes, they're comfortable, and I can feel that, but I have had some back pain this week. So maybe for some of you, you're going to find this vehicle to be perfectly fine, especially with the seats. But for myself and my body frame, it hasn't been the most enjoyable experience when it comes to the comfort. Now, getting back to that high-mounted air intake, gonna roll down the passenger side window, and we're gonna get on throttle here. Hopefully the wind noise isn't too bad. And that is intoxicating. Now, as we're getting closer to the highway, let's talk about body roll. With 10.2 inches of ground clearance, you don't have a lower center of gravity. And yes, there is some sway here out of the 4Runner. But at around 45 miles an hour, it still feels pretty connected to the roadways, which, again, is not something that you would expect here out of a vehicle like this. Now, I do think its lateral movement, its handling in the corners is where it definitely feels truck-like. This is where the body-on-frame aspect really comes into play. And if you're someone who doesn't go off-road all that much, or you're not taking on rocky trails, you might find it better to go in the unibody chassis direction. And there's a number of vehicles in this class, actually well below $70,000, that can give you the all-terrain tires and an off-road tuned suspension, but a bit more of a playful nature. Now, at highway speeds at around 70 miles an hour, this is where interior insulation takes a major step back. You spend some time in the suburbs and on the back roads, and you're like, it's actually a quiet drive. And then you get on the highway, and it gets very audible for the interior. But I don't see this being much of a difference compared to other vehicles in this class. However, when you're traveling at around 70 miles an hour, this is where you feel the all-terrain tires, and it doesn't feel very planted on the roadways. You definitely had that vibration making its way into the steering column. But I have a feeling that a lot of you have already prepared for that, so it's not something that I think most of you are going to note and say, you know what, I'm not going with a Trailhunter. I'll take a lower trim with tires that are more suitable for what I'm looking for. I just think that with the 4Runner, and we talked about this throughout this entire video, is that it's flexible and it's a great all-arounder. It might be the ultimate daily driver simply because of what it is and what it offers. The fact that it can be comfortable for on-pavement driving, the fact that it is practical, the fact that it has enough interior space for all your luggage, and then on top of that, you have a vehicle with, I think, a decent powertrain. Even though a lot of people will disagree with me and say, Mike, you need a V6, you should have driven the V6 from last generation, and then you would say otherwise. But right now, in the 2020s, considering the gas prices, considering where we're at right now in this class, and also looking at what other manufacturers are doing with turbocharged 4-cylinder engines, this is one of the few vehicles of this size and in this market that I'm not complaining about the Turbo 4, that I'm not sitting here saying, you know what, this needs a V6. The Chevrolet Traverse needs a V6, and it doesn't offer that. And then also you have the Kia Telluride, which I know, unibody chassis, really can't compare, but from what I've heard, the 4-cylinder is nowhere close to what you had with the V6. So there's a lot of sacrificing there. Whereas with the 4Runner, yes, you don't have the V6, but out of the hybrid powertrain, you have enough performance and enough confidence where it's not going to be a slouch. And with the 8-speed automatic, it feels quick. And because of that, this vehicle, as currently presented, in my opinion, is a great body-on-frame SUV if you're someone not looking to spend $80,000, $90,000, $100,000, because vehicles like this can get very expensive, and when you factor in all the features that Toyota has poured into this vehicle that comes standard, whether it's the old man EMU shocks, even the roof rack, the light bar, everything, the fact this all comes standard is what makes this I don't want to say a value option, but in this particular market would be considered a value, and why it might be a better choice over the TRD Pro and might be a great vehicle for you if you are constantly going on the road during the summer or the winter and you're towing things and just having those experiences. That's where the 4Runner has really impressed me. And I gotta say, with the Trailhunter, even though this wouldn't be my first pick out of the 4Runner lineup, it has met my expectations and in some ways has exceeded them because of what this vehicle offers us when it comes to the on-road driving experience. So guys, let me know what you think here about the 2026 Toyota 4Runner Trailhunter. Is this the ultimate off-road SUV, or is there better in this market? Let me know in the comment section below. But guys, once again, thanks so much for watching, take care, and I will see you guys next time.